This is a very old picture of two Suzukis that I restored, oh, I'm guessing in the early 80s, late 70s, early 80s, and there's a long story to this. And it starts with a bike that I customized for my really good friend, Frank Straub, the late Frank Straub. And this is his bike. I had made two of them. You only have that one old photo of the two bikes, but that's how this story begins. And I call this story the story of the Evil Twins. We used to nickname these bikes the Evil Twins. Now, the Evil Twins is something that I had envisioned years ago. And when I restored this bike, what I did, I bought a donor bike from a person in Philadelphia that had a bad engine, paid very little for it, and I've been using it to pirate parts off, and I've really gotten my money's worth out of that bike. And this is it. And over the years, I've used cables and parts of the engine and God knows what else, but the bodywork that's on here, the fuel tank, the fender, and I haven't touched this for several years, and the seat is still, that's my original parts. These parts belong on this bike. So nicknaming these the Evil Twin, in fact the shocks belong on the other bike. But I've used it to my advantage over the years, but now it's time to do what I've waited a long time to do. So what I'm going to do over the next few days, I'm going to pull these, and it's been so cold out that I've been looking for indoor projects. I'm going to pull all the bodywork off of this bike, totally restore it, buff it, polish it. Oh, it's in pretty good shape, but it still needs a refresh. Find anything that any of the tabs are broken, anything that needs to be fixed, and get this all ready. So what I'm going to ultimately wind up with is a bodywork kit. Now, if this works out the way I want, what'll happen is I'll have all of the bodywork from my original bodywork, and I can swap it out probably in one day that it goes above 8 degrees in my garage here. And so in essence what I'll have is Evil Twins. And then that bike will just be a storage spot to hold the West Cooley bodywork. And for some amount of time I can ride this as if it were my original bike. So I really have two bikes for the price of one. And the good news is I have a clean title for both bikes, but this bike does need to have the crankshaft replaced. It's got a bad crankshaft bearing. But boy, has it been amazing how many parts I've taken off of this bike. I can't even make a list. And it's proven that if you can get a bike very inexpensively with a bad engine, you can just use it like a Christmas tree to pirate parts off when you restore another bike. And I've also done the same thing with this Kawasaki, the 750. You've used it as a Christmas tree to pirate parts off when I did the restoration of the green 750. So this promises to be a fun project and something I've wanted to do for a long time. I've wanted to have a bike. My vision was I wanted to have a bike that, and in this just happens to be the bike that I put, I'm guessing, hundreds of hours into polishing that engine. And that engine is a jewel. That's a rock solid engine. Everything about this bike I like, and as I get older I like it more and more. Super comfortable, plenty fast for my needs anyway. I've upgraded the brakes. Using the modern tires has made it even handle better. But the nice thing is I want to be able to swap the bodywork, and I think I can do it in better part of a morning or whatever, and just swap out the bodywork and in essence have what feels like a brand new bike. And then a year from now, 6 months from now, when I get bored with that, put the West Cooley stuff back on. And depending on how it plays out, now I don't know how it's going to play out because it's a really long cold winter here. And I have another set of bodywork and a tank for this bike, of course, over there. And I have a spare set of wheels. And I have extra parts for this bike. So, and I've also thought of if the winter just goes on and on, I can get a set of new bodywork for this and make this a Kenny Roberts replica or something. But I always want to keep the original stuff. And I want to be able to swap it out. I think I'm going to be able to do this reasonably. And I'll start on it tomorrow because today is the day we're going to go see Miles. But believe me, I've been dreaming about this project for a long time. I hope it works out the way I want. And it's going to allow me to show some of the tricks or tips that I've done restoring old paint, and I don't know how bad that paint really is till I get it down into the cellar under fluorescent lights. Do the restoration of the paint, do the swap of the parts, and while we got it apart, any other maintenance that needs to be done. Anyway, it'll be a fun project, and I'll call this project, this is the beginning of it, the Evil Twins. Build it up, build it up, build it up. You can go to the moon with this. You got, oh wow, look at this go together, wow. Now you promised you were going to help me work on the Evil Twin project, and look what we're doing. This is not the Evil Twin project. I think you should put the pointy ones on top. This is going to the moon.
It should be beyond half. Beyond.
Come on, you can build it up.
Are you sure about you be half?
Build it up, baby. Reach to the top. Come on, baby.
Half now.
Be careful you don't knock it over. It's delicate. The bigger it gets, Miles, the more delicate it is. This is getting pretty delicate already. The taller you make it, the more it wants to tip over. It's not that funny. What are you laughing at?
Because it's tipped over.
You got So this is basically how the Evil Twin project is evolving into a and you know this is not going to be up for too long. Mr. El Destructo here.
Ew.
Don't knock it over. Dun 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 dun. Definitely bigger than you. Can you get more on top?
That's not the point, Grandpa.
Come on, you can do it. You can do it.
How Bill?
Look at this baby build. Oh, he's stretching the limits of engineering. Wait a minute.
Yeah.
Now be careful, don't knock it over. Ah! Oh, here we go. Ah! Let me see how big is this one? Look at this, he built, holy.
No, we can make it to a ceiling.
We ran out of tiles. We don't have any more tiles.
No, these triangles.
We need to go to Motorcycle Mall and buy more parts.
Take those triangles off. You see, no, not those triangles.
How high did you build that, Miles? Did you measure it? Look at how high you built it. Oh, it's higher than the door.
6 feet 8 inches.
No,
Oh.
that's higher.
I'm 6 feet.
Daddy's 6 feet, so it's more than 6 feet. Don't knock it over.
Picture.
Don't knock it over, baby.
Picture. Even you.
Ah! I don't feel good about this.
Right there.
Where's Papa sit?
Picture.
At the other end.
Oh, Papa.
See how big it is. Okay. Look at that. It's twice as big as you. Don't knock it over. Oh, Miles. Ah.
1, 2, 3. Knock over time.
Oh, chop.
He's an expert in demolition too.
All right, he's going to be good. He's going to join the military, I think.
Good.
The Evil Twin project moves on.
How's that feel?
Don't you feel good when you knock something over? Oh, after a great day with Miles, this is how my day starts out every morning this time of year. My fish need a hole in the ice, and this is a lot of fun to do just before I have my coffee. Now on this, the introduction video, which is this video right now, one of the things I wanted to do, I'll do this one step at a time. I wanted to cover some of the things I found that are really useful about restoring old paint. Now obviously anybody can, you know, if you're really a fanatic, what am I talking about? I'm a fanatic. See what you can do. You can just repaint everything. And that's pretty labor intensive, pretty expensive. Or in this case, what I'm going to do, as soon as I can feel my fingers after chopping that ice, I'm going to take off the fender and see if I can restore this old paint. And I'll try to include some of the things that I've found useful when you want to restore old paint without removing all the clear. Now the easiest thing here, once I get the feeling back in my fingers, bring this down into the shop, and you can see what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to bring one part at a time down into the shop and see if we can restore this paint. This will be an interesting test. Now the first step on this these apart. This is actually a part of the original bike that I purchased in 1982 from Westwood Suzuki. And so when I bought what now is the donor bike, the one I took this off, I switched the parts around. Well, thinking that I'd be able to restore the other bike and have two running bikes because I have two titles. Well, there's just not enough time in my life with Miles and with Karen's projects, and we're going to be starting some big projects around the house here in about a week. So I looked at this part real close, and I thought, when I was out in the garage, I said, this project that originally started, I wanted to wind up with two running registered bikes. I doubt that's going to happen this year, maybe next year. But the point is, when I put this part away, the paint on it, was still serviceable. It's just rough. It needs to be restored. Now, you may have purchased a bike or bought a bike from somebody who didn't take care of the paint, and this is probably what it looks like. Again, 35-year-old paint. This is old paint, and I want to see how much I can clean this up and if I can use it. See, the idea is if I can do this without having to repaint the whole bike, save a couple hundred hours, a lot of hours anyway, not to mention the money. Plus, even though Colorite makes the matching paint, probably it won't be an exact match unless I paint the whole bike. So, to spend a couple of days restoring this finish, I'll be very happy if it comes out to be a serviceable finish. Now, looking at it, the first thing I look at, there's no real cracks in this. There's a little crack here. Nothing I can't live without. And let me just say, here's what you don't want to do. And the reason ask me how I know this. There's a lot of motorcycles. I won't mention any brand or names because everybody's going to be all upset. But some motorcyclists put one very thin coat of clear on everything. The way you can tell if you have one of those bikes, go where the insignia decals are, or where there's a paint edge. And if you can feel it, you have a very small amount of clear. And what happens if you take rub and compound and start grinding this, you go right through the clear. Now, what I did when I bought the R1, I wanted to find out how much clear was on there, and I was sanding it with 2500 paper and buffing it. And I realized, ooh, they really did put a nice amount of clear, but that was only the R1. Other bikes that I've had and other bikes I've worked on, you hit it with a buffer and in 30 seconds you're through the paint. Again, who knows? It's all chopped liver until you go to do it. But anyway, this looks like I'm going to be able to, and as I take the parts off one by one off the bike, maybe some of the other parts will need repainting and I'll change the whole program. But for right now, I thought this would be a great little way for me to demo how I would handle restoring a 35-year-old paint job. Now, anytime you start restoring anything, and I mean anything, I like to take good old simple green. And why would you bother cleaning the inside of a part as well as the outside? Well, here's the reason. If you're going to use a buffer on this, or even if you're going to sand it, grind it, polish it by hand, the one thing you don't want to have is to pick up a little bit of, and there's probably plenty of it down in here. You don't want to pick that up on a rag and then go grind it right in. So, as I suggest in my 1,000+ videos, and by the way, they're coming up on 1,100 here soon. So here's what's happening is I want to get, now notice I'm doing the good side first because I don't want to even pick it up wiping it off. I want to get as much of this goop off as I can. And I would just guess it'd be very difficult to go out on eBay and find a fender that was in any better shape than this. And maybe none of them are. Maybe you can't even get it. I don't know. I was really disappointed. The last couple of times I looked for parts, what was available was 10 times worse than what I had. And you can see what comes off of this. So, but if you start every project with a clean part, this doesn't have any grease on it. Like if you were doing a chain guard, you'd want it down to or anything where there's really gross amounts of stuff. But if you start every project with a clean part, you stack the deck in your favor. Now there's a lot of little issues. You don't see this. This is where the fork leg obviously was rubbing. you really don't see this. This is a little flaw in the paint. I'm looking for anything that looks like I got to really watch out for it. Same thing here, it just rubs on the fork leg. Now this is usually one of the products, the 4C product. In fact, I have almost none left. Very expensive. This is about a $40 jar of stuff, but it's really nice on restoring this kind of paintwork, and it leaves a pretty good shine, from which point we can go to the next step. But I want to, if I can do this on video, you wouldn't really have to take the bike apart. Now, I just was up at Vince's house not long ago. He's restoring a BMW, and to restore what amounts to be older paint. See, paint as it gets older, it gets harder. So in essence, you really can put a nicer shine on it. The problem is, if they didn't put enough clear on to begin with, you wind up going right through, and then you got to repaint. Just gonna do one little spot real quick to see if it's gonna come up. The 4C product is really good at this particular thing. Now, some of these compounds, they're just too aggressive. One thing I would not recommend is rubbing compound. But let's just take a little look at how that originally. See, now a lot of these things, this I bought this in Chart in a body shop supply. This is professional stuff. This is not what you buy in AutoZone. So, but the AutoZone stuff is okay too. It's just, I'm not sure which is absolutely the best, but let me show this up close. Now this is what we started with. Even after it's clean, it's full of little pits and chips. And it looks like, now I always candle it to see. Let's just see if I can get hard to get a candle on this. There we go. If I candle that, I think you can see that came up pretty nice. And it came up pretty quick too. I'm guessing it would be, to do this whole fender, is going to take, well, it's going to take 2 cups of coffee. Now, just for truth in advertising, this is a Harbor Freight buffer, and when they were on sale, they were less than $50. And when I had the coupon, I think it was about $35 with the coupon, but very inexpensive. Soft pad, not the black pad, the hard one, because we want to put a smooth finish on it. I want to do this with taking the least amount of material off. Now, I always just, before I even do the whole part, I want to see just what I'm dealing with. Now it looks like there are some little specks in the paint here, which if I can't get them out with this, I'll try a little bit rougher compound. But I want to start with the 821. 80, it's really 8021. The label came off. This stuff really gets used in the shop, so, and it really leaves it. That material is the best of the stuff that I have. So it looks like we got the start on getting rid of most of those little imperfections. Okay, now we're after working on this, and I'm looking for, before I do a final polish, see, these parts here I don't care about. You don't really see that. I'm not worried about that. And I try never to spend too much time polishing the bottom of the oil pan or something I don't see. I want to put the time into what I see. I see some imperfections up here, and there's one down here that looks like somebody, and it could be me, since I've owned the bike since new. There's a big scratch or a gouge there that I want to address. Let's see if I can get it. So what I want to do, I want to get some 2500 sandpaper and a little soapy water and work on it, just get enough of it off that I can flatten it out. Now this is our good old-fashioned 2500 sandpaper. There isn't, here's the two. It is 2500, trust me. You would not take 400 sandpaper and do this. 22,000 is okay. I want to put the least amount of scratches in this, and I want to take off the least amount of material. Now again, truth in advertising here, and I actually did the whole bike when I bought the R1. I did this one part at a time. And, you know, I could see the difference. And when I used to, at that point in my life, I was going to Motorcycle Mall for other things, and every time I'd go there and park it next to one of the stock R1s, I could see that mine was just a little shinier. Now, I was thinking of something really, I know Turbo Steve is one of our good friends and contributors. Ooh, that's coming out nice. But he loves patina. He likes to see the, I guess people that do antiques are the same way. In fact, Karen is the same way. She likes patinaed out old antiques. I hate them. I like nice shiny stuff. But I'm trying to have the best of both worlds. I'm trying to have the original paint on this Evil Twin project. I want to have the original paint that I had. And it is the original paint. Even Turbo Steve will be impressed with that. And if I fail, I can just repaint it or re-clear it or something. But the first choice is I really want to give it every chance I can. And I'm sure you saw how bad that was. A 2500 sandpaper is very aggressive. It'll take a lot of paint off. Now I want to show up close. But what you can see we've got now is a flat where that imperfection was right there. It's flat. Now I don't want to do one of these big camera cut things where every time I watch a video and I see, oh, you know, the guy just walks away and he comes back and the whole part's buffed. I want to see how long that's going to take to come up. Now, you've seen this with no camera cuts, no fancy Photoshop or anything. And so you can make the decision here. We've had a big flaw in the paint. And that's the purpose of what we do with the videos now. Well, again, I mentioned this before, and I mentioned it to Vince. I watched that guy polish truck gas tanks, and I was blown away. And that really, this is the kind of finish I want on the whole thing. So now what I'm going to do, and I'll do it off camera. See up here, I'm going to live with this. There's a couple little cracks in the paint, a couple little imperfections here. Looks like we hit some stone chips or something. But I'm going to do the rest of this off camera, unless I find something that I can share. But at the end of this, at an hour from now or so, I want this to be that I can put this back into the project bin, and when the day comes we're ready to swap the parts, these will be waxed and ready to go. Now, I'm not sure, because it's always in the eye of the beholder anyway, but this old paint has been restored, 35 years old. It is now, I think, better than the day it left Tokyo or wherever it came from. Who knows? And I always think the test is you look in the paint and you can see, let's see if you can do that. I don't know if you can even do it. If you can see your finger in the paint and you can see your reflection. Well, now we're going to go out to the garage, get the side covers, do the same process to the side covers. I remember when I bought this bike, it was available in two colors, metallic red or this color bronze or gold, whatever you want to call it. And I'm glad I got this color. I've really liked this color over the years. So we have our first part ready for our project. We're going to be doing one part at a time. When they're all done, it'll be ready for a day of swapping out the parts. The Evil Twin project. Now the side covers are actually in pretty good shape on this bike. They have some repairs on the back, but there's certainly no big flaws in the paint, so these are just going to need a quick once over. Now a little clue, this is something you can use to your advantage no matter what motorcycle you happen to have. If you're trying to figure out how much clear is on, and I'm very careful not to over buff these and take off all the clear. Rub your finger over where the decal stickers, whatever they are, and I can feel them on this bike. So this tells me there's not a whole lot of clear. There's not extra clear like when you order pancakes and there's extra syrup. I'm not sure you can see it, but I can feel it with my finger. Here's the thing with these parts. You see, this comes from the factory this way. It has little dents in here. It has little dents here where the tabs are. And these are in pretty nice shape. But now, if I were doing a custom bike, obviously these would be all filled in. And another thing, and it's something that I remember from painting the West Cooley bike, this has pieces of look like electrical tape here. And I'm going to leave them on just for that patina. What Turbo Steve seems to like is that a patina look. Or normally if I was doing a real restoration on this with new paint, and John would make new decals, I would paint these and then clear over the whole thing. But then I'd lose that thing that this is the original paint that came with the bike 35 years ago. Now with these two parts done, I really feel like, and I've really been able to get a feel for how nice this paint is going to buff up. I wasn't sure I was going to be able to restore it, and I was getting ready to order some paint. I don't think I'm going to have to order paint for this job. I think, and if the tail section, the only two pieces left, the tail section didn't look in terrible shape, and we're going to find out in a few minutes. I'm going to run out to the Tundra and pick out the tail section, and I think this is going to work out just great. Now out here in the Tundra, I got the quartz heater all set up. Getting the tail section off, just a few bolts, not a big deal. And the only thing that's going to be a problem when I go to get the gas tank off, what I always do when I leave motorcycles in storage, like these two bikes are basically in storage, I fill the tank with gas. So that gas that's out there, that's a few years old. I don't want to use that in a motorcycle. I want to drain it. And the reason for leaving it filled is because in this garage it's damp. I don't want to rust out the tanks. So I always leave the motorcycles in storage with full tanks. So getting this off shouldn't be a big deal. And then I can get back in, have a cup of coffee, and if I can get some, I may get them all done today. You never know. You never know how a day is going to play out. Now, one thing good that makes this project possible, this is a very easy bike to work on, relatively easy to do all the maintenance things. These parts come off relatively quickly and easily, but I'm going to show one tip that I suggest everybody do. When you take any of these older bikes apart, and it's a great tip, it's worked for me well over the years. Now, this is a really practical tip. Now, all of these old parts, they're 35 years old, maybe more. They always have a tendency, the plastic gets brittle. So whenever I have a bike apart, I check and look for any little cracks. Now I see there's a little, that's not a crack, that's part of the plastic. I'm looking for something, and I'll show exactly what it is. Now these parts I've already reinforced. I've had to make this part with a piece of carbon fiber years and years ago and reinforce it with JB Weld. This one I had to make from plywood because these parts are very vulnerable. The plastic dries out and they're really a problem. So while I have this apart, if these parts look even a little loose, or maybe I'll do it anyway, I'll just paint on another coat of JB Weld, put a little carbon fiber in these. Much like what I do to all of Vlad's parts, we do it before the part cracks. The idea is to do it before the part cracks. just as an example, see these side covers, these things are really vulnerable. You almost never see these side covers. These aren't broken. And as I had problems here, I just used JB Weld is certainly good enough. And then if you put a little bit extra on, you can just Dremel it off so it's a nice tight fit when it pops into place. Now, I really wasn't sure when I started this project how these parts were going to play out, if I was going to have good luck. This certainly looks restorable. I don't see any big gouges on it. I don't see any place where somebody took a bite out of it. That is only one problem. I see there is very little, if any, clear over this decal. So as I polish this, I'm going to go right around it and try not to go over it more than the minimum time. The reflectors look perfect. So it's just a question of getting out the simple green, cleaning it up, and giving it a 20 minutes, half hour of buffing. Now, the problem with some parts, they're hard to hold when you're buffing them. Of course, if you have a helper, it's always nice. We never have a helper. I gotta avoid that decal. Now, one thing good about 80-21, it doesn't have a tendency to just grind paint off. I was concerned because there's, I can't even tell if there's any clear on top of that, but I'm not going to get cute. That's not a focal point that I'm going to worry about having a decal buffed out. I want to see the rest of the paint. And again, oh, the little flaw right here I didn't see. And then get in this groove with some, this is another, not a trick, but take a little bit of that polish and get right in that groove. Oh, it comes right out. Beautiful. So I know the tank is in pretty good shape. Then that's the last part. And I will have what amounts to be a kit that I'll be waiting for a little bit warmer day than today. And once I get a chance, I'll dedicate the whole day to swapping it out, because I'll want to check and look at other things. And just like when I did the valve adjustment, I want to always look for any other issues. A bike this old, there's always something that, and if it was easy, everybody'd have an old bike. It's not that easy. So as we finish up these pieces, the only thing left is the tank. I need to go drain the gas, so I get most of it out anyway. I want to fill it up with fresh gas before I start the engine. Of course, I don't want to have this 2 or 3 or 4-year-old gas going down into the engine. So far, very, very happy the way these parts have cleaned up. Actually, I'm a little amazed. I was not expecting they would clean up this well. Now, I remember this tank being in really nice shape, but I'll check it out under fluorescent lights for anything that needs little scratches or anything. And we do have, this tank has way more clear on it than the rest of the motorcycle. Now, thanks to Suzuki, that'll mean we can do a little extra buffing and polishing there. But it's time to just get it out, get rid of that gas. Now, I noticed another thing as I take this apart. I haven't had this bike apart for a few years. This bike has the more modern set of carburetors that have adjustable idle circuits on them. The other ones don't. The ones I have are sealed. So maybe at some future time that'll be something worth trying. Just swap out the carbs. Anyway, for right now, we want to get out of the cold. Dump this gas and get out of the cold. And I know I've mentioned this on many, many videos, but I have 2 parts bikes, and they have served me so well, better than I could ever imagine. And if you have an antique bike, anything over, well, any old bike, and you can pick up a bike, now this one has a clean title, but sometimes you can get, if you look on eBay or wherever, Craigslist, sometimes you can buy a bike that doesn't have a clean title and doesn't run, but all the parts are there. And you can get it very, very cheap. I've seen them for just a couple $100. Anyway, This is the next project. And I just can't wait to get out of the cold here. Now, of course, as I'm cleaning the tank up with the simple green, I'm looking very carefully for anything that looks like it might be rusting through. This looks like it's perfect. And I had already swapped the sensor out, but it wasn't the sensor, so I know that sensor it's not something I'm going to worry about right now. We may replace the little overflow lines, get some new rubber on there as long as we have it apart. And one of the things, anybody has an old motorcycle, a real old one, you know, sometimes oh God, you got to be Superman to turn this, but I want to make sure it goes both ways. And I do remember this petcock was always hard to turn. I guess anybody that has a GS like Aaron knows that. But anyway, as long as I have this out, I wire brush this down just a little bit. Oh yeah, that's a lot better. Took all the gas out. Now what I'll do is before I put this back on the motorcycle, I'll take it back up to the gas station and get fresh gas. There we go. I don't want to leave this on where the gas just goes right through. Okay, one other little thing here. That's it, that's it. This is up out of the way. We're ready to clean up, ready to check this for flaws and clean up and polish just like we did on the other parts. Now I had put this little piece of Velcro on here. There was a time when I had a cafe seat that I had made just as an accessory item. Don't need the Velcro anymore. And now I want to start by cleaning this whole thing up with simple green. Because there is definitely some grit and there's stuff around the gas cap especially that if I get that onto the buffing wheel, it's going to be a problem. And it's the part most people leave out when they do one of these polishing or restorations or whatever you want to call it. And when you do, if there's a little chunk of grit and the buffing wheel picks it up, boy, it's a heavy price to pay. I got to get this. Funny thing about this gas cap, I get 3 keys to this bike. One fits the tail section, one fits the ignition, and one fits the gas cap. This is actually the craziest bike I've ever seen in terms of keys. But we're going to put all the keys that belong on my bike, my original bike. So I want one key that fits everything. Oh yeah, plenty of stuff coming off of that, that's for sure. Now because this tank, actually the paint is nicer than I remember it, I'm going to just do the minimum amount. I don't want to take any more clear off than I have to, especially over the decals. In fact, it's probably, I'm thinking of something, it's probably a good idea if I was really worried about, as an example, I wanted to make convention is, if there was no clear over the decals, I would take some blue masking tape and go over them so you don't hit them with the buffing wheel and peel up all the edges. Now the 8021 just brought the shine up on this almost instantly. So again, I'm trying not to take too much of the clear off because this part is in really nice shape. And I'm so glad that when I swapped the parts out with the other bike, I put these, filled it with gas. I don't have zero rust in the tank. Petcock works, everything is just the way it should be, so I can do this swap. You are an evil twin of the future, baby. Well, day one of our project ends. Everything is pretty much ready to swap out these parts. I'm assuming I'll be able to do that in one long session or 2 short sessions. But now having this down here, buffed, waxed, all the tabs reinforced, it just couldn't be any better than this. This is really, really going to make the next day's work very easy. And since I've owned this bike since it's new, it has some special meaning to me that it still has its original paint job. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, share it with your friends, of course. And I hope you've gotten some ideas of something that will help you restore any of these old motorcycles. We try to keep them running and humming, and then ride the wheels off them. And for me, this project has a special meaning, again, because this is my original bike. 1982, how long ago it was. And we'll be doing the next part of this in the next couple of days. And again, thanks for watching, and thanks to everybody that shares their information on YouTube.